This is a question that we have from Amber. Amber originally sent us a voicemail, left a voicemail for us, but because of my technical screw up, we can't play it. But the gist of her question is about burnout. She wants to know, Gary, do you ever get burnout? If you don't get it, how do you avoid it? And generally, do you have any reflections on the whole idea of burnout among activists within kind of the quote unquote movement?
Well, yeah, I have some reflections on it. I've been doing this for 25 years now. I started doing it basically around 1981, 82, and so I've been doing it for a while. And I, my view is this: I'm not the one in the factory farm. I'm not the one in the slaughterhouse. I'm not the one in the laboratory. I'm not the one in the fur farm. I'm not the one stuck in the trap. I'm not sure I've got a right to burnout, I guess. And I think that a lot of animal people focus a lot on their own suffering. I've seen this over the years. I have seen this happen a lot, where animal people focus a lot on their own suffering. I think we need to move away from that. I think we need to recognize that, it's the world is a depressing place in a lot of ways. There are a lot of horrible things going on. It's not just animal oppression. I mean, even if you don't care about animals, the things that go on with respect to humans are pretty upsetting.
Absolutely.
And there are children starving. There are, there are people in horrible situations, humans in horrible situations all over the world, in poverty, in various forms of oppression, and it's dreadful. And there are certainly billions of animals that are suffering, and so I think you need to make a decision, and that is, if you care, you do something about it, and if you don't care, you don't. And if you do care and you do something about it, you always have to put it in perspective and remember, you're not the one who's suffering. You may suffer indirectly, and I don't want to minimize that, but the humans and the non-humans who are being oppressed are suffering a hell of a lot more. And I think that we need to make sure that we don't indulge our second-level suffering too much. And so, no, I've been doing it for 25 years, and I'm grateful that I'm able to do it. And I live in a world of incredible violence, which goes back to the first question you asked me, how I feel about violence. I hate violence. I'm violently opposed to violence. I live in a violent world. I live in a world full of people who think that violence is okay, and that or that violence is a good reaction when violence is imposed on them. And we need to, at some point, break this idiotic cycle of violence and say, no, just stop participating in it altogether, which I believe we do. The most important first step we make in that respect is by becoming vegan. That is an extremely important, fundamental step in the road toward ahimsa, or nonviolence, is to stop exploiting them in our own lives. As I've often said, veganism is more than just a matter of diet or what you wear. It's applying the principle of abolition to your own life, and so I think that's really important. And I think it's a sad world we live in, but as a friend of mine once said to me, "Otro mundo es posible." Another world is possible, but we have to visualize it, we have to believe in it, we have to work toward it, and we have to realize that we are fortunate to be able, and we have to see ourselves as privileged to help the people who are themselves struggling. We don't struggle. We're not struggling. We're trying to help those who are struggling. And that is a privilege and a great gift, and we need to see it that way, and to not see ourselves as the ones who are, we're not the ones in the slaughterhouses. We're not the ones living under in oppressive and cruel situations, certainly not relative to the rest of the world. And I think we ought to avoid indulging that view.
I guess as a follow-up to that, I mean, even if you recognize that we're not the ones that are suffering, how do you not get overwhelmed by just the vast amount of it that goes on in the world?
I don't have a choice. I mean, look, it's horrible. I mean, I actually, I'll tell you something. Since you've asked the question, I'll answer it. There are very few material things I own that I really care about, and one is a ring that I have that I wear, and it's a coin. It was minted by Mark Antony to pay his armies and navy at the Battle of Actium, which occurred in 31 B.C. He lost that battle, and he and Cleopatra went back to Egypt, where they killed themselves. And I don't often explain why I wear this ring, but I'm going to explain it to you, so now the world knows. I wear it because it reminds me that if it ever gets too oppressive, I always have the choice of killing myself. And so I don't. I mean, I have a choice. And I choose to stay here and to struggle and to regard. I mean, it's all a question of how you look at it. And I look at it as a privilege. I look at it as, tomorrow morning I hope I will get up and have the privilege of being able to continue to do the work that I'm doing, to play my small role in shifting the paradigm. And I have the choice. I could exit the world anytime I want. I choose not to, because I choose to continue to view it as a privilege. Yes, it's horrible, Jenna. Of course it's horrible. It's absolutely hideously horrible. But what can you do? What are your choices? You either give up and crawl under, a rock and die, or you say, I'm gonna struggle, and I'm gonna try to figure out a different way of looking at this. And the sad thing is that the world could be a really wonderful place, and all we've got to do is will it as such. It's not a question. I mean, it's a question of will. It's a question of vision, and it's a question of whether we really want it. Do we really want it? And I sort of view my role in life as trying to stimulate people into wanting it. And I know there are a lot of people out there who do, and I say, let's work together, let's do it, let's shift that paradigm, and let's move it away from patriarchy, let's move it away from violence, and what will come from that is moving it away from speciesism and sexism and racism and homophobia and all of the idiotic things that small minds have produced in order to create divisions. All of that's unnecessary. It's all silly. It's all stupid. It's all indefensible, and it could all be gone tomorrow if we willed it to be such. And that's what we have to do.
I couldn't think of a better place to call it to a close.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Jenna's almost crying.
No, it's very moving. And
it is.
It's, like you said, it's important to remember you're not alone in the struggle. So.
No, you know what? And there's people, I mean, the three of us are talking, we've been talking for, 3 hours and plus, and we obviously share a very similar vision of the world. We probably have some differences, but you know what? My guess is that the differences are minimal relative to the similarities. And you know what? There's a zillion people out there. We haven't been able to talk to each other because communication has been impossible. But now communication is not impossible, and there are going to be a lot of like-minded people. Yes, there are going to be people who are going to listen to this who aren't going to be convinced and say, it's all right for us to breed dogs and cats. I love my dogs and my cats. What's wrong with that? Or there are going to be people who are going to say, whatever. But there are also a lot of people who agree. And what we need to do is all focus on that agreement and on the common areas of agreement, move forward and try productively and creatively to teach everybody we can about nonviolence, about veganism, and about abolition. We can do this. We can do this. But we need to, it's not easy, but so what? Nothing really worthwhile is all that easily accessible, I guess.
Good point.